Good afternoon, you guys. My name is David Aroni, and like Ken said, I'm the VP of Operations for Summit Environmental Contractors. And before we get started, I just want to thank Ken and Interday for this amazing event and drawing these incredible minds together for this one-day opportunity. So thank you, Ken. Summit is primarily a right-of-way clearance contractor that specializes in the management of hazardous materials. Over the last 20 years, we've been involved with several hundred infrastructure projects throughout California in pretty much every sector, dealing with hundreds of agencies. So I just wanted to get that shameless plug out of the way. So thank you. Okay, the topic, like as Kent mentioned, is the building of resilient infrastructure in California, and how imperative it is to address the impacts of climate change. Collaborative efforts involving government agencies, stakeholders, and communities are essential to prioritizing climate resilience in infrastructure planning and investment decisions. By establishing climate resilient infrastructure in California, we can protect lives, preserve assets, and promote sustainability development in the face of changing climates. So just to set the stage, I have three incredible visionaries on the stage with me, and they come from three major sectors of the infrastructure community. I have Ryan Schneider with Caltrans District 7, and District 7 covers 1,500 miles of highway and has 111 million vehicle miles covered daily, the equivalent of 144 times around the Earth, which is incredible. I've got John Sharma with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And to put the Metropolitan Water District in perspective, they are the largest supplier of treated water in the U.S., domestic U.S. And last but not least, I have Meg Sideroff with the high-speed rail. And the high-speed rail is actually the second largest active construction project in the world right now, with a projected budget of more than $100 billion, which is incredible. And the fact that I get to share the stage with these people is amazing. So just a little bit more about panelists, and then we'll get going with the questions. So John with the Water District is the senior section manager in engineering planning for the Metropolitan Water District, and Meg is the Director of Planning and Sustainability for the California High-Speed Rail, and Ryan is the Executive Liaison of Special Projects, supervising transportation planning for Caltrans. So, with that said, I guess a question for Ryan and John. What are examples of technology and innovative approaches your organization is taking a part of to mitigate or adapt to for climate change and weather events?
Thank you very much, Ryan. Very gracious of you to get me going first. And thank you for the question. Let me start by saying that Metropolitan has a system reliability plan in place. The system reliability plan has 5 components. The first and main component is supply reliability. We need to have a water supply reliability for Southern California. It is in this field where I feel that Metropolitan is doing the most innovation. Things like water reuse and recycled water is a very important thing for us right now. We put a lot of innovation in this. We are now involved in Pure Water Southern California. It is a project that will recycle 150 million gallons of waste annually. It is a joint venture between Metropolitan and the Los Angeles County of Sanitation District. And as part of that project, we constructed the Grace Napolitano Pure Water Southern California Innovation Center in Carson. And what they do over there is a group of scientists and engineers that spend most of their time researching treatment processes for wastewater. It is, I believe, one of the most innovative things that we are doing right now. We are also doing a lot of work, and second component of our reliability is system capacity. We need to have the ability to move the water quickly, because as climate changes, you've noticed it, the patterns of precipitation have changed throughout California and throughout the arid West. And so for us, it is important to capture that runoff and immediately move it into storage, whether that storage is surface storage, ground storage. So to be able to do that, we use smart water management tools that keep track of what's going on with remote sensors. And we also use data analytics and predictive tools to see what's going on and be able to manage that. We are also putting a lot of work in innovative research in the area of desalination. Our board just issued a research contract, two of them, one for seawater desalination and another one for brackish water desalination. Brackish water desalination is probably something we ought to be doing. There's quite a bit of water under our feet that is brackish that could use benefit from that. There is a lot of other things, but I'm going to stop here. Turn it over to Ryan.
All right. Caltrans is addressing climate change, I think, in probably three primary areas. One, we've embraced multimodalism in our transportation projects. So we are supporting public transit, walking, bicycling, carpooling in our projects that we build, that we fund, that we support. So that's one primary area, and there's a lot to expand on that. The second area is that we are actively promoting and helping to put out electric vehicle chargers, and also looking at solar panels in our right-of-way. So that type of operational addressing of climate change is sort of a second bucket. And then the third type of climate change addressing, I would say, is we're working with adaptation. We're looking at landslides, sea level rise, wildfires, and all of those types of things that are impacting us. I mean, right now, the Pacific Coast Highway has significant numbers of areas where they're shut down because of landslides and sea level rise. So we're looking to have to move our coast highway inland some and prepare in other ways for these types of climate events. So adaptation is the third.
That's great. So the second question would be, would you expand about some of the challenges with respect to various parts of the resiliency project life cycle? Please provide examples of how collaborative efforts involving government agencies, communities, and stakeholders have aided in this process over time. And I'd like to ask Meg to answer that question, please.
Thanks. It's a very meaty question. Right. And I would say that working in this space of resilience, all of us, or climate adaptation, and really focusing on, we have a few things in tension, which is we're actively planning and designing infrastructure according to standards that we all have in hand today, that everybody's comfortable working with. And what we're doing is anticipating the future. And that future is wildly uncertain depending upon the actions we take now. So there's an inherent tension there. And what we are asking of our designers to do is to appreciate that complexity of future information and design the infrastructure we're putting in place today to meet that future. Then add on top of this, I love the panelists that have come before us and have been so articulate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the conversations, the very important, meaningful conversations that we need to have with our communities, and appreciate what resilience means for them, because all communities are very different. They are not all created equally. Our infrastructure projects are often very much focused on one outcome. We work very hard to get high-speed rail built as quickly as possible and are focused on that mission, which is an audacious mission and is an undertaking that I think few appreciate the scale of. On top of that, we want to make sure it is resilient. So as part of that, we make sure those conversations we're having with communities is not only understanding, will this infrastructure stand up? Is it fit for purpose? Is it fit for the next 100 years? But is there a way we can tweak elements within the delivery of that infrastructure so that we are making communities more resilient? Can we look at the way we're designing our stormwater and stormwater management or landscape so that it is able to adapt over time? Are there ways we can do workforce development so that communities are resilient to the changes that are happening relative to the economy? So I'd say that within the overall, project delivery cycle, and when you add in resilience, you are very much attuned to how resilience matters to a given community and understand what you can tweak within the bounds of $100 billion infrastructure project to make a meaningful difference to a specific community.
Oh, that's great. If you don't mind, I have a quick follow-up to that.
Please.
So we often focus on discussions about sustainable infrastructure along coastal communities. Why was it important for the high-speed rail to not only create an alignment through Central California, but also invest in station development, including cities such as Fresno, for instance? Mm-hmm. And what were the climate challenges in California's Central Valley?
Great. That is another very meaty question. So I know we're sitting here in Southern California, and I know many of you yearn for us to be building from Southern California as quickly as possible to Northern California. That's the vision of high-speed rail as a system. The deliberate choice to make sure the system connected the cities of the Central Valley to the economy here in Southern California and to the economy in Silicon Valley is very much about making sure that economy is ready for the next 100 years. So it is in some ways this idea of overall economic resilience for the state of California. That's one layer. The second layer is, and again, we are all working in California, we are subject to nearly every single different type of climate stressor and climate threat. And it is a tricky place to work because our underlying systems are constantly changing. We're almost rebirthing ourselves geographically or geologically speaking every year. So taking that on board, when we look at the Central Valley, again, economic resilience is certainly important. And we wish we had $1 for every time somebody said, it's really hot in the Central Valley, very hot, and will only get hotter. Like, I know climate models can be a little bit tricky to work with, but all of them tell us that we are going to face many more days with heat stress. So to that end, we're very much focused on how the design of the stations can accommodate much more shaded activity, bring water to the site as much as we can, ideally recycled water and other. So that's kind of one aspect of how we're looking at resilience in the Central Valley.
That's a great response. Thank you so much. John, I know that the Metropolitan Water District has been actively involved with resiliency and sustainability projects since 1995. Most recently, some of the initiatives include the CAMP project and the Climate Adaptivity Project Program for Water. Could you speak to this, and what would be one particular project or strategy that you're most excited about initiating, and why as part of that program?
I guess I am excited about our climate adaptation master plan for water. It is a huge undertaking by Metropolitan. We are trying to, with that, establish a framework of adaptive management and adaptive processes, so we can deal with climate change and being resilient to climate change. We think that a process like this will facilitate a continued reliability and resilience in the face, I guess, of a changing climate. So I would say that's going to guide us into our resource development, into our infrastructure development. It will help us shape our policies. It helps us create partnership opportunities with other water purveyors in the region, helps us with our investment decisions, and help us with creating a business model for the future. In conjunction with that, another activity that I thought has been very helpful for us to shape how we are thinking about this is we just completed a climate vulnerability and risk assessment. Okay. And it really investigated how we are currently incorporating climate change into our thinking of a resilient infrastructure in Southern California. I think those two activities that are underway right now, and I really encourage everybody to visit Metropolitan's website, mwdh2o.com, under climate adaptation, to read about all of these activities that are taking place. All our meetings are in public forum. They're all broadcast online, and they're all available for everybody to listen. And we also encourage people to comment. So before every meeting, the public can comment on these things and help us better understand everything. But I think those are the two things that excite me the most right now about what we are doing at Metropolitan.
Thank you so much for that, John. Ryan, again, what would be, and I know you're actively involved with the solar power process as it relates to the transportation in District 7. So what would be one project or strategy that you are most excited about initiating or following up with, and why?
Well, the most effective way of reducing greenhouse gases is to electrify our transportation system. 40% of greenhouse gases in California are tied to our transportation system. So if we can reduce that, that's a huge chunk. It is the largest piece of our greenhouse gases. Related to that, you mentioned solar. I've been working, and we have people in Sacramento working to put solar panels in our rights-of-way. If we are to reduce greenhouse gases from transportation to the highest degree, much of that depends on what source of energy we are recharging our vehicles with. So if we go to recharge an electric vehicle and it is getting electricity from a coal-fired plant, that doesn't help a lot. We can really maximize the benefit of electrifying our transportation system by having renewable, clean energy sources. And so Caltrans is in the process. We have some challenges that I'm willing to talk about, but trying to put solar panels in our rights-of-way. We'd like to put them on our park and ride lots, our rest areas, our buildings, to the degree that the electricity that we use is generated by clean renewable sources, and again, ideally charging vehicles with clean renewable sources.
That's a terrific response. And Meg, would you like to add how the power for your entire operation is going to be, power in the conventional sense is going to be solar power?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like we could go on a road show together about the value of electrification for transportation, and then not just electrification, but understanding the source of that power. So high-speed rail, I know everybody in the room is really good with physics, so you understand we'll be running on electricity so that we can run at 220 miles per hour. And our board committed us in 2008 to make sure that that electricity was all renewably sourced. Now, along the journey of the past 15 years or more, we've seen tremendous strides in California around battery electric storage and the improved efficiency and capacity of solar photovoltaics. California is one of the best places in the world to implement renewable energy projects. So like Ryan, we have looked at our rights-of-way and understand we've got really well-configured parcels that are on the scale of 100 plus acres. We're about 150 acres or more. Yep, exactly. To do solar generation that we tie to battery storage, and we are going to use that as one of the primary draws for the train. That helps us to not only reduce our second largest cost after labor, which is the electricity to run the train, but it also provides an incredibly critical source of resilience. because as much as our utilities and our infrastructure is working so hard to be resilient, we know a lot of stressors are coming. We know how hot it's getting. We know how much air conditioning is going to be turned on in the summers in the Central Valley. So we want to make sure our passengers who are on high-speed rail are not stuck during a power outage somewhere in the Central Valley on a really hot day. So we have a source of backup power that allows us to run the trains on these battery systems for more than 6 hours, so that we make sure we maintain our operations even in the face of major electricity outages.
Yeah, we could probably go on for hours about this one particular issue. John, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do want to add something to that. Most people think of the Metropolitan Water District as a water company, but secretly we're also an electrical company. We own and operate huge pumping plants, and to supply electricity to these plants, we have over 240 miles of high voltage power lines that come all the way from the Hoover Dam into Southern California. And it is no secret that the water supply in the Colorado River has been eroding over time. If you just Google Lake Powell on YouTube, you'll see numerous videos about the decrease of the amount of water in the lake. With that decrease, also our generation decreases. And so what we have been doing is looking for energy sustainability solutions. And we are finding solar as a primary energy solution for us. Unfortunately, there's a glut of solar power out in the desert. There's just too much. Many times the price of electricity during the day goes negative. In other words, we're giving away electricity for free. And so what Metropolitan is looking at is storage, So battery storage is a good idea, but try to put that, batteries out in the desert, and soon you very quickly say, well, it's too hot. But we have reservoirs, and we are looking at solutions like pump storage, where we can use pump storage, not in the traditional way, but in new innovative ways where we can store that energy so we can use it to pump that water over the hills and into Southern California.
Thank you so much, John. So we're actually running short on time. I have time for one more question. We've got about 5 minutes, so here it is. If you had one wish on how you can turn a series of linear projects into an exponential movement of like-minded individuals seeking to uplift humanity and leave a legacy for generations to come, what would it be?
Boy, I'd like to see a commitment to environmental stewardship. For me, that means conservation and efficiency in using our water resources. More important is probably protection of our water quality, ecosystem restoration, and of course, I'd say sustainable management practices in the water industry.
Ryan?
I would like to see us as a society really rely on the best information and science and technology that we have to solve problems. We have enormous capability to solve our problems if we apply the knowledge that we have. We have too many people in this society that don't believe in climate change, that don't believe we should be talking about DEI, that don't believe we should be talking about our history and race issues and all of that. We know these issues. We need to apply an academic approach to educating people, and not only those of us policymakers who are actively trying to work on our problems, but also the general public, so they can go along with the things that we need to do to solve our problems.
I would also like to give a shout out to science, because we do have, in this room, we have a whole set of powerful minds and so much education that we can bring together to solve our problems. And I think what I would wish for is that we do make this renewed commitment to looking at our infrastructure, thoughtfully designing and integrating that infrastructure well into our communities so that we are making sure they are resilient for the coming century.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think the thing that struck me the most, and I'll just add this, is that when I looked at the opportunity to have these three panelists together today and looked at the communities that they came from and the diversification, and I felt like they were actually, on the cutting edge. So I think that, when you're talking about zero net emissions for even the equipment that's building the structure, I mean, you're talking about things that are so far out there that everybody else is following, not only domestically, but internationally. And, in order to have this massive transformative purpose and make it into a reality, it's going to be based in science and community and all the other intangibles that go with it. So thank you very much for your time today, you guys, and I'm very grateful for this panel. It's amazing.
Thank you.